All right, I got a few different things I'd like us to go over today. First, just so you know, and you may care about this, you may not, but on Thursday of this week, this is the third time they've had a virtual job fair for the St. Louis campus. Now, there's going to be, I think they said 159 companies right now. Well, it says over 160, so she's updated it. And as you guess, not all of those companies are going to be hiring for IT or for web or whatever. They're not. Maybe 10%, maybe more. I don't know. But if you're interested, you can go out here. Some of these places, what they will do is they are willing to take people who are partway through a program, and they have internships and the like. Sometimes they're paid, sometimes they're not paid. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this email right here. I didn't yet, but I'm going to forward it on to all of you and to Angie and Keegan as well. All right. So if you're interested, you can take a look at it. If you're not, just throw it away. It's totally fine. All right. So that was the first thing. Second thing, just so you are aware of it, I sent you all out an email this morning. Let's talk about what's in that email. All right. We are going to attempt to install SQL Server on our machines today. I was going to do it myself yesterday to see if it worked or didn't work, but I decided I'm going to do it with you. So we're all going to sink or swim together. All right, so we're going to do that in just a little bit. I'm not going to totally follow the steps that are in here because it's a 22-page document. So I went online yesterday and started watching a bunch of these videos, and just to show you, I literally went out to YouTube and I typed in install SQL Server 2019. And there's quite a few of them, all right? I started watching this one, and it's very good, but the guy who does it's for if you're a professional in the field. So it's a professional development one. All right, so then I went and watched this one, and it's pretty good as well, and it's only 8 minutes long. Now we're not gonna watch it together. I've taken screenshots from it, and that's what I'm going to use. And I looked at it and I said, okay, there's 354,000 views. So enough people must be watching it. All right. I'm not a hardware guy. I tend to
Hey,
screw
how
up
soon,
when
guys?
when I try doing hardware. I do more bad than good. Not purposely. It just seems to work that way. You can see about 10% of the people who have viewed this have left messages, and that's a 97.5% approval rating. So I took it for granted that it must be pretty good. So we're going to go through that amongst other things today. All right. So that's one of the things, like I said, that we will go over. And after we go over that, we will attempt to go in and actually create a database underneath there. What database? Well, I sent you the SQL Server equivalent of what we've been working on. And I want to take some time to go over that with you. It won't take much time because it's going to look very similar to what we did the other day. All right, to kind of finish up on what we did do the other day, I just decided to give you my keys for a couple other worksheets. So if you want to take a look at those, you can. If you don't want to, you don't have to. All right. So we're going to go through that, and we're also going to go through the chapter 17 written test this morning. All right. So we're going to do all of that. So to start with, this is what I'd like everyone please to do. Got my cheat sheet here, and hopefully everything will work just fine. All right, so I want you to go out to, tell you what, I've got it here, and I'm going to put it out on the screen. I should have sent you that URL too, but I didn't. So let's just do it this way. Let's see. All right, I'd like you all to please go out to this URL that you see on the screen right now. As always, you probably can start it with just Microsoft.com, but I'd like you to go out there. So Microsoft.com/ENUS/SQL-server/SQL-server-downloads. All right. Hopefully you've all had a chance to do that. I'm going to grab it as well. All right. And hopefully yours looks like this. Your screen looks like this right now. Okay. Now, a couple things. There's different ways that you can download this stuff. All right. For instance, SQL Server on Azure. That is Microsoft's cloud, basically. So you can run it on the cloud. Totally fine to do that. At the edge, well, this is a combination of that. And notice it's for IoT, which is the Internet of Things, which is basically trying to be able to write applications for anything like your refrigerator or whatever. All right. Then there's an SQL Server on premises. Well, if we go down a little bit further, just a little bit, you'll see right here, it says, or download a free specialized version, okay? And there's two of them listed here. Now, in that YouTube presentation that I referenced, the guy uses the developer one. We really don't have to do that because we don't need anything that powerful. So we're going to try to download the Express. Now look at it. What you get, for lack of better words, is about 10 gig that you can use to create databases. Well, the database that I've copied over to you guys, just the database itself with all the records is about a meg. So we should have plenty of room, is what I'm saying. Okay, there shouldn't be any kind of problem with this. All right, okay. So just so you know, the developer edition can be used for non-production work, but since it's free, Microsoft will only allow you to do certain things with both of these. So in other words, could you take this, download it to GitHub, etc.? Yes. Can you show other people? Yes. Can you run a business off of it? No. It's Microsoft. They're not going to allow you to do something like that. All right. So we'll choose the Express, and what I'd like you to do is click on the button that says Download Now. Now, what's going to happen if you look on the screen here, as always, it's going to put it over here. If you're running Chrome, it's going to put it in your Downloads folder. That should make sense to everyone. If you're using Firefox or a different browser, it'll put it wherever normally when you do downloads, where that will go. All right. So I'm going to right mouse click on this and I'm going to say open. And it'll come up like this. Yours may say this, yours may not say this. I've said this before. Basically what it's saying is, hey, you got to be an administrator to run this. Is that okay? Well, yeah, because it's the machine that I use. So I just click yes. All right. Now, when you run through this, there's a basic and there's a custom. Notice it says, select the basic installation type to install the SQL Server database engine feature with default configuration. Select the custom install type to step through the SQL installation wizard and choose only what you want to install. Or there's download media. I've done both the basic one and I've done the custom one. Now, the basic one is going to end up being bigger, but it's not going to prompt us for anything. I think it's easier to just use the basic. Now, a couple things about this before we choose this. First of all, I'm not sure how fast our connection's going to be here. Literally, this can take up to 15 minutes. All right. And it also can take as little as 2 or 3 minutes. But just so you know, it's probably going to take a bit of time. All right. And once we do that, we're not done. Okay. But we're getting there. I've got 8 steps, and this step right here is about step number 2. So I'm going to click on basic here, and I'd like you to do the same. So it comes in, and of course, I don't know about you guys, but they always say you should read these things. And if you're like me, you kind of whip through it, okay, but you don't read it. Now, there usually is something in here too. You can either highlight all of it and run it off later or whatever if you want to do that. I'm just going to accept. All right. So then it says, where do you want to install this? This is where mine installs. Your default location for where you store different software may be different than mine. All right, but I'm just going to keep the default. So notice it says minimum space, free space, download size. It's not a small file. All right. So I'm going to click install, and I'd like you to do the same. It's interesting, last week on Thursday, when you guys weren't here, when I was lecturing to the Lewis and Clark people, um, in the morning, there weren't really many questions other than how much is the cost to go to school here, etc. In the afternoon, they were really quiet. They were very respectful, but they were quiet. And I said, are there any questions? And the reason I'm telling you this is that Mr. Schmidt, and some of you know Thorin Schmidt, who's the main instructor over there. Mr. Schmidt said, I've got a question. And I said, yeah, sure. And he said, I'm just curious as to, does this work on a Linux box? Because that's what they use there. And I said, I really don't know. Because no one has ever come here saying I got a Linux box. I said, first of all, couldn't they run like some kind of a virtual desktop where they had Windows? And he said, yeah, and they know how to do that, so they could do that. But he said, I'm just curious. And I said, I really don't know. So I looked it up online, and the first thing it said was, no. Then it said, yeah, like a lot of documentation does, but if you want to, there are things that you have to add. All right. So I sent him what I'd found. The only reason I'm telling you this is, again, we ran through some problems with this a couple years ago when one of the students had a Mac. It just, for whatever reason, everyone's was going through and doing the same thing except theirs. And I don't know why. Again, I'm not a hardware guy, period. And I know even less about Macs. Other than I bought one about 6 or 7 years ago, used it for 2 years, and it's sat in the closet ever since then. All right. So you can see that it's installing, and it's going through all of the stuff that it has to go through. When we're done, there's another install that we're going to have to do. And you'll notice they've got a bunch of stuff in here. It says you use the official GitHub repository containing code examples for SQL Server. That might not be a bad thing to look up if you ever get the chance. I have not done so. All right, so it says here that the installation is completed successfully. Has yours completed? No, then I'm going to wait until yours does. There's no sense in really going on if yours hasn't completed. And I'll tell you what, if you could just do this, just so I can kind of get a count, so to speak, once yours gets to this point, just raise your hand so I know that Indeed, and I'm going to wait. We're not in any hurry to do this. I am going to take this because I'm taping, and I'm going to pause it until everybody says downloaded. All right, while we're waiting for Gabriel here, just a couple things. First of all, I'd like you all, if this is what your screen looks like right now, I'd like you all to click the button that says Connect Now. And tell me if you get this. It's like a little DOS window that comes up. Yes? Anybody who did not get that? That should mean that you have connected successfully, all right, and you now have Microsoft SQL Server 2019 on your system. Now, let's leave that up, but for now, just minimize that DOS window. So click the minus sign up here in the upper right-hand corner, okay? All right, now the next thing that we want to do is we want to install the part of this that's going to actually allow us to create databases, query databases, etc. And that's called SQL Server Management Studio. And it's abbreviated SSMS. So do you see the button down there, the third one of the four that says install SMMS? SSMS. Does everybody see that? Yes? All right, so click that button, and it brings you to this page right here that talks about downloading SQL Server Management Studio. So if you want to read more about it, this is where you'd go. But what I'd like you to do is to scroll down to where it says download SSMS, and you see the hyperlink, and I'd like you to click that hyperlink right here. So it's not down very far in here. And just click right there. The same kind of thing is going to happen in that it's going to go into the downloads folder, as you can see. It's going to do the same stuff it did before. So again, I'm going to right mouse click on it and choose open when done. And again, one of the reasons that I chose this particular one out of the ones I watched is, if you've noticed, everywhere we've been going so far has been Microsoft site. I'm once in a while you get these rogue sites that probably are okay, but occasionally it could be problematic. I didn't want to do that. So 3, 2, 1. Looks like mine's coming up. Now again, yours might take a little longer. I get that. So if you notice, just watch mine, because yours is going to get to the same point in just a moment. So again, I'll say yes. And again, notice it's going to tell me where it's going to install it. All right, and I'm just going to tell it to do the install. And again, it may take even longer than the previous one did. But eventually what should come up is what's referred to as a login page. And we'll look at that when it comes up. There's all sorts of stuff. I don't know what 99% of the stuff that's going on in here right now is doing. I just know that it's downloading a bunch of system files that I need in order for this to be able to work. That's what I know. The good news is that this is step 5 of 8. So we're getting there. You making progress there, Gabriel? Now, if you notice, mine says setup completed. Yours will get there. But I want to show you something, so if you'd please look up on the screen here, because when it does say setup completed, you can click close. All right. Now, we're not done yet, but we're almost there. All right. So I want to wait until people have gotten to that point, even if it takes till 9 o'clock, then it takes till 9 o'clock. All right. This is one place, sorry, I don't shine at all as an instructor because I'm not a hardware guy. And I know this isn't exactly hardware, but I look at it that anytime you're installing software and you're changing a bunch of system files and stuff, it's more of the kind of thing that hardware people would do. All right. If they ever told me, Jeff, we're moving you to the hardware program here at Rankin, all kidding aside, I would retire. All right, because I would think it'd be a disservice to students to have to listen to me do this. So when you get to this point, once you've installed that, and once it says that it's completed, and you click the close button, which brought me here, it probably will bring you here too. Again, please raise your hand so you let me know. And again, whoops, until we get to that point, I'm again going to pause this. If your screen looks like mine, all right, or some reasonable facsimile of mine, now you can click close. And it says, let's see, the installer, are you sure you want to exit? I should be able to, yeah. As far as I know, everything's been installed. I've still got this open right here. You should be able to just click the X up here and have that go away as well. All right. Now, what I want you to all look at then is if you go over and click on your Windows Start button, I'm taking for granted you all know where your Windows Start button is in the bottom left corner. If you go over there, now under recently installed programs, hopefully we see it in there. Now we could do it this way. We could just go down and look. There's Microsoft SQL Server 2019. You can see that's in there and it's new. And I've got a bunch of stuff in there. I don't really care about that. All right. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come into my search box here and I'm going to type in SQL Server Management Studio. All right. And as you can see, it's finding that app. Everybody see that? Hopefully it finds it on yours as well. And I'm going to just click on that and see if we can start it up. So this is the first time then we're starting up Management Studio. First time on this machine too. I've got it on this one. All right, but that was done like a year ago and it was an older version. Now, again, I'm not in any hurry here, but one thing I do want to mention to you, if you look up on the screen here, please. I'm going to show you another way to do it, but the server name, I would copy that as well. That server name that's in there. Also, again, if you look on your machine or you look on the screen here, because I don't know where you are, we want to keep it at Windows Authentication. There is another one that's in there that's SQL Authentication, but then you have to provide a username and you have to provide a password. All right? We're not going to need that here. That said, I will tell you, when you start turning in your homework now, it's going to be a pain in the ass to grade it because I'm not going to be able to totally grade it because you're going to have things in there. Either I'm going to have to change your database so that it's on my system, which is really a pain, or I'm going to grade it based on what you've done. Does that make sense to everybody? Or I'm going to have to go to your machines and have you run it and grade it on your machines. That's typically what I've done in the past. All right? But what I'm telling you is we don't want to change anything that's in here, but I am going to take this, I'm going to copy it to the clipboard, and where I've been putting all that other stuff in here, okay, and yours won't look, this one won't be probably what yours is. In fact, there's a very good chance that everyone in here, yours will all be different. All right, so this is my server name. Oops, try that again. All right. So what's in here, notice it says server type, and there's a bunch of different ones in here. We should never have to change that, but I just wanted you to see there are different types in there. All right, so we want it to be database engine. Server name. Now, it looked like with Mr. Gleason here that he may have already had it loaded on there. I don't know. But let's assume that you had, instead of 2019 like we have here, you had 2017 loaded. Are you with me? Okay. Then you could click the browse for more if there were other ones, and it would find those as well. So if for some reason you wanted to regress and go back down, you could do that. Again, you should never have to change this one. The Windows authentication I mentioned. You'll notice the only other one that I've ever used on here has been SQL Server authentication. And again, if you do that, you'll notice with Windows authentication, the username and the password are grayed out. If you change it to SQL Server authentication, they will become ungrayed, and you'll have to enter your own login and password. So if you were going to work at a company, there's a good chance that you'd probably be setting it to SQL Server authentication, or if you were working on Azure, you would set it there. All right, but again, we shouldn't have to change this. All right, I already mentioned in here, you'll notice in here that the username that they're showing in here is the same thing as what's up here, except this one has got a /SQL Express appended onto the end. All right. So have people gotten to the point where I am right now? Are you here? Anybody who's not, are you still, okay. It's what? It's still loading? Okay. I'll tell you what, it is 9:03. Let's take a break till 9:15. All right. And then hopefully we'll all be at this place by then, or darn close to it. Okay. So let's take a break, like I said, please, until 9:15. All right. While we're waiting for Gabriel here, let's just talk about what we're going to be doing this week. So, like I said, I wanted to finish up with the MySQL database queries. And that's what, that's why I gave you that. We did the SQL Server and SQL Server Management installs. We've done that. I want to go over one of the articles that I gave you today. We're going to try to run through it as a class to see how to create a database in this. All right. We will then go over the Chapter 17 written test. And unfortunately, at my house, I've got all of your Chapter 15 tests. I didn't put them into the grade book yet. I'll do that tonight. And I will hand those back tomorrow so you can all see how you did. All right. I got an email this morning from my cohort at the St. Louis campus, Evan Gudmested, saying that tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock, he and Paul and I are to have a meeting using Microsoft Teams. And so I'm going to go grab the computer and take it into the other room, probably into the conference room. All right, so I don't disturb you. But before we do that, I want us to write a couple of applications where we see if we can connect to our database. And then I'm going to write we'll write another one it's called, it really should be called Tester, not Test, a tester app, where what we're going to be doing after we've done that is we will set up a thing where now you'll be able to type in any query you want into the database, and it'll find, if you type in a valid query, it'll find the results for you. If that doesn't make any sense, it should make some more sense to you once we get to that point. All right? Like I said, I wish Gabriel was back, but he's not. On Wednesday, then, I will lecture on Chapter 18 of the book. What you're going to find is much of the material that we go over tomorrow will be replicated in Chapter 18. But rather than sit there and lecture on Chapter 18 and give you a lecture like that, I'd rather do something where we do a bunch of this stuff first ourselves so you can see what it looks like. the program that we create tomorrow, I don't know if we'll have time in between 8 and 10. If we do, we're going to create this simple connect thing. Then I want to redo that, and I want to redo that using basically the wizards. All right? I don't know if we'll have time to do that or not tomorrow. If we do, yeah. So if we do have time, we'll do this using wizards. And using the wizards is a lot of what chapter 18 is about. All right. So I do believe now that everybody has gotten to pretty much this point. Now, if yours finally finished, and Gabriel, looked like yours did, you can close that. And again, go into your Windows search box here and type in Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio, and it should give you the icon, for lack of better words, and say app there. And when you click it, that should get you to where we all are. And am I right in assuming the rest of you, that's where you are right now? Correct? Good. So I am going to click connect, but I want you, before I do, look on the screen, everybody. This may look like this on your machine. It may not. I don't know. But if you look in the left-hand side, you see where it now says Object Explorer? We haven't had that one before. Over here, you've had the Solution Explorer. Over here, you've had the Properties window. Over here, we basically had the toolbox. All right? The Object Explorer, for lack of better words, is how you will end up creating databases and connecting to databases. All right, so I am going to right now click the connect button. And now if you look here, this is what we've got. All right, now I'm not even going to lie to you. There's a bunch of stuff in here I've never touched. So if you say, well, what does this mean? What does this mean? I don't know. Also, there are a few more folders that were not in here when I did this a year ago. The one that we're going to be most concerned with, and you probably have already guessed, is this one that says databases. Right there. And if you open that, you'll notice there's database snapshots and there's systems databases. All right. I would recommend don't touch this. Okay. There's a bunch of stuff the system sets up for you. You may or may not remember, but when we were looking, and I had you inside of PHPMyAdmin, there were a couple databases that were already in there that I told you we weren't going to jack with. And I would say the same thing right here. So I'm going to close this, and I'm going to close this. Now, don't do this. We are in a couple minutes, but if you look up on the screen, please, if I right mouse click on databases, notice the first thing that comes up, new database. We are going to try to follow the instructions that are on one of those handouts that I gave you this morning. The first one, like I said, was 22 pages long, and it was just way too much. I figured, geez, somebody's is not going to work anyway. And I figured with 22 pages, that would be a way for me to pretty much assure that none of yours worked, probably including mine. So I didn't want to do that. But this other one, I want to walk through this with you. You don't have to bring it up. All right. But it's called How to Create a SQL Server Database. You'll notice it's from WikiHow. What I liked about it is it's got pictures of everything you're supposed to do. So we're going to follow those pictures and see if we can get this thing to work. All right? I'm not going to read this to you, but they go through the steps. Step one, we've already done. They say install the SQL Server Management Studio software. That's what we did earlier. Step number two says take a look in here and connect. We did that at the beginning, right after the break. We just connected. All right. Step number three, pretty much where we are right now. Okay. Now, if you look on mine here, it does say over here, if I stretch this out enough, come on. All right, it's got desktop, mine says M1J4BEF/SQL Express. Yours probably has something somewhat similar. All right, but the point is, that's where we want to be. That's pretty much what they're showing right here. I've got mine open, but we could close it. All right, so again, I could come in here and I could close everything, and it looks very similar to what they're showing in the book or the handout, whatever you want to call it. All right, so we've done those first 3 steps. We've located the database server. I'm sorry, the database folder. As it says, after the connection to the server, either local or remote is made, the Object Explorer will open on the left-hand side of the screen. Our connection has been local. We are using our machine will be used to house our database. That should make sense to everyone. Okay? Now, the next step then says, create a new database. It says right-click on the databases folder and select New Database. A window will appear that allows you to configure the database before you create it. Give the database a name that will help you identify it. I'm going to recommend we use the same name we used before, and that is sales orders. One word. You can make the S in the first S in sales and the O in orders capitalized. All right. It says you will note that as you type the database name, 2 database files will be created for you. All right. One will typically be a MDB file, Microsoft Database. That's your database file. The other file will be a .ldf, and that's a log database file. That file is supposed to hold everything that you do in your session. It's a log file, so it's logging your steps. The recommendation is don't even open that file. All right? So then it says click OK to create your database. You will see your new database appear in the expanded database folder. It will have a cylinder icon. That's what we're going to hope for right now. So, like I said, we're not in any hurry here. So I want us to be right here, right mouse click. In fact, I'm going to open this up one time there. And I'm going to right mouse click on databases. All right, and I'm going to choose new database. All right. And when you look in here, notice what it says. This is what it mentioned in the book. You've got these 2 new files that have been created. All right. And I'm going to come in here, and as I mentioned to you, I'm going to type in sales orders. And you'll notice that over here now, there's my 2 new files. There's my sales orders file and my log file. I'm not going to, try to put anything over on you, but when they talk about file type, and it says rows data, I just look at it, that's it, it's the data. All right, it'll be an empty database. We haven't put any schema in. We haven't added any records. We haven't done diddly. All right, but it should be creating that. The initial file size, it says it's going to be 8 meg by default. The auto growth, it says that every time that 8 meg has been reached, it'll automatically upgrade by 64 meg. So it'll go from 8 to 72. I don't think that's going to be an issue with what we're doing. Could I be wrong? I'm wrong more often than I'm right. But I could be. I don't think that's going to happen. All right. Then it has the path. All right. So that was all fine and dandy as far as I know. So if you put in sales orders, and again, don't put in a blank space in there. All right. But just click OK. Now, if you look on your screen, hopefully you got this as well. I now have sales orders there. All right. And what's an important thing is it's not inside of the system databases, and it's not inside of the database snapshots. Again, being totally upfront with you, I don't know what the database snapshots is because when we did this last year, that wasn't there. I know that a lot of programs where they say snapshots, what that will do is if you've got to move your machine from your database from one machine to the other, it'll basically copy everything that you have and it saves it in what's typically referred to as a snapshot. Not sure if that's what that is or not. But this is now in here as an independent entity. In other words, it is not a database snapshot. It is not a systems database. This should be the only database that we have to create, just so you're aware of that. You don't have to do this, but if I click here and I open it, we're going to get into a lot of this stuff. This is what we're going to be working on for the rest of the semester. We're going to go over chapter 18, probably not tomorrow, but Wednesday. And we'll go over 19 and 20, plus there's a chapter in that last section that's on something called link. We'll go over that in the last week. I'm guaranteeing you right now, it's going to be either 2 days or 3, probably 3. That Wednesday of our last week, which is like the 5th or something like that, I'm going to make sure that I show you guys especially how to use that Mobilize package. So, and you will have 2 days to build your portfolio or to finish this stuff up. All right. Now, when you look in here, again, I just want to mention, because this is way different than when we did it a year ago. When we did it a year ago, it had database diagrams, it had tables, it had views, and I don't think it had another thing in there. So you can see as time goes on how they add to what's in here. Well, big surprise, that'll hold our tables. All right. And just so you know, what is a view? I believe in very simple definitions. A view is a saved query. So for instance, let's just say that I had this query, this would be kind of a dumb one to do, but I could do it for this. Select star from products. But let's say that I was always running this and it was where product ID is equal to 734. All right, I'm just making that up. But let's just say I ran that all the time. And I got kind of sick of running that query. I could type in this, create view, let's just say I called it V734 as. Then what it would do is it would take that query, save it, so now I could just run select star from V734 and it would run that query. Does that make sense to you? The reason that that is important is not for something like this, all right? But if you've got a query that you're writing, in professionally, let's say, that's several hundred lines long, once you get it to work, you don't want to be typing that query in all the time. So you do a create view as, and it'll save that as a view. So if I did that, it would save it in here. Eventually, we'll look at some of the diagrams that get created in the database. I don't think we'll even look at external resources or synonyms or programmability or service broker or storage or security. I don't think that we will look at any of them. We'll see. All right, so jumping back into this then. We did this. Now, as it says there, we could create a new table. We can do that. We're not going to, but we could do that, okay? So it says there we could put in a new table. All right, and it says when you do all that, it'll come up and it'll do this. So we could go in and just so you see this, right here where it says int, etc. Well, it's got the column name. I don't know why it looks like that because it really shouldn't. But we could come in here, for example, forget about this. We could type in category ID. All right, for the data type here, we put int And over here, we could specify that it's a primary key. Are you all with me? We could go in and do that. It would work just fine. All right. And maybe I'm shortchanging you guys. Maybe we should do that. I don't know. We could go and create all of our schema in that way. There would be absolutely no problems doing that. All right. But I'm going to see, and I'm going to try it first. So if it doesn't work, we'll know real fast. All right. This morning, again, I sent you this. It's got all SQL Server. Okay, I'd like you, if you have not done so, I'd like you to unzip that file. All right, so I may even have it here already. I'm going to unzip it because I'm going to be right where you are. So I'm going to right mouse click on and make sure it's the one that says all SQL Server. All right, so I'm going to extract it. Just throw it right here. There it is. Now, I want to show you because there's some things in here that are the same. There are some things in here that are different. All right. First of all, you'll notice if you look, there's an images folder. These are our 40 products. I'm hoping we're going to get to the point where we're going to be able to show those on screen. All right. I'm not going to go and click on any of them. Hopefully they make sense when you take a look at them. Okay. Now, so when you look at, let's look at this first one in here. Again, you don't have to open yours yet. That's totally fine. Should look familiar to you. Looks very similar, not identical, but very similar to what we did last week, all right, when we were using PHPMyAdmin. Here, if you want something to be an auto increment, you do not use the word auto increment, you use the word identity. That's just the way they have it set up in this database. It's no biggie. All right. And our customers, because I've already got the data in there, our first customer will be customer 1001, and it'll go up by 1. Do you remember when last week how I had to have you remove the database and we put it in again? Because I had the SQL Server data in, and we were trying to use the SQL Server data on the MySQL database. That's why it didn't work. Okay? And the thing is, it still would run the queries, but it would never find the data because all of our customers in there, they were 1 through 28, not 1001 through 1028. So it never found any matches. And the same kind of thing with employees. Our employees went from, I don't remember how many employees we have, 8. Instead of going from 1 to 8, these go from 701 to 708. Does that make sense to everyone? All right. And if you look in here, there's a couple other differences, but they're more subtle than anything else. This is nvarchar, where we've been using varchar. And I believe that MySQL, in fact, we may have even had nvarchar in ours. But it's variable length characters, just so you know. That's what it is. All right. I don't think there's really anything else that's in here that we haven't already seen until you get down to the bottom. All right. This is that file that I had you put in that was called constraints. And there's even more constraints. I ripped some of them out from the file that I gave you last week. This is setting up indexes. I've mentioned before that an index is like using an index that's in a book. So again, if I told you to look up the word, I don't know, category, and I said, where is that used in this book? If we had a book, all right, you'd go to the index, you'd look up category, it would lead you to a page, and boom, you'd be there. Same kind of an idea here. But what indexes work on in databases is they help to expedite the amount of time it takes to return the results from a query. That's why you typically create indexes. Also, look on the screen here, because we didn't really go over this before. This, what we did last week was we did what's called DML, data manipulation language. It was CRUD operations. We used the insert, which created things for us. We used the select, which read things for us. And we used update and delete, which updated and deleted, right? So you've seen all those. This command that you see in gray right here on line 99, this is not a data manipulation language or DML command. This is a data definition language or DDL command. What a DDL command allows you to do typically is to create, alter, or drop something that's in a schema. So where DML that we worked on last time allows you to manipulate the data, all right, DDL allows you to manipulate the schema. Hopefully that makes at least a little bit of sense to you. So we're telling it here to alter the table, and we're telling it to add a foreign key constraint. And we're saying this is going to be the name of it. You can call it Ralph. It doesn't care. But everyone should be called something different. Since it was on order details, it made sense to call it order details, and F key for foreign key. Now, some people go to the extent where this insists is products. They would say for order details underscore products. You see what I'm saying? And they have everything that's in there. I figured that putting it in like this was okay. And I will tell you, I have never, ever, that I remember, ever, in doing this for over 20 years, ever remember changing the name of a foreign key after it was created. You can do that, but I don't ever remember a reason I had to do that. Okay? So what we're going to try to do, I have no idea if this is going to work. So even though this is not a long file, we're not going to try to do it like that. We're going to come in and we're going to do this piecemeal. So what I'd like you to do is open up this file and literally just grab these first 4 lines and copy them to the clipboard. Grab those first 4 lines and copy them to the clipboard. And if we get nothing else done, but we get this built today, honest to goodness, I'm happy as hell. All right? I'm taking for granted that you were all able to highlight that, do a Control C or however you do your copies. Then we're going to go back into here, and we are going to right mouse click where your thing says sales orders, and we're going to choose new query. And it should bring up a query window right here. And I can make this bigger. Okay? And now I'm going to paste in what we just did. Now, if this works, what should happen is right now there shouldn't be anything under tables here. See, it's got system tables, etc., but it doesn't have any actual tables in it. If this works, we should now have a table in here. Does that make sense to everyone? And it's just a schema. There's no data in it yet. So, to actually, excuse me, to actually run this, okay, if you don't see an execute button here, and if it's not green right now, try clicking right at the end right here. So click right on the end, right there. And then to run this, we're going to click that execute button. All right? And it says commands completed successfully. And it's basically showing you it took less than a second to do that. Did anybody try to do that and get an error? All right. If that's the case, then what I'd like you to do is, and what I'm telling you to do, I wouldn't normally do it this way. We'd save all these queries. We don't have to. We're just creating the tables once. Does that make sense to everyone? All right. So highlight all of this stuff. Hit delete. Don't worry about the stuff below. It's totally fine. You can remove that too if you want to. It's up to you. But remove all that stuff that's right here. Go back into this file. Now highlight all of the customers stuff. We're going to purposely do this a line or a table at a time. I want to do it this way. All these databases are quirky. Sometimes if you throw too much at them, it'll just lock up. I don't want that to happen to anybody. So I'm going to highlight all that, do a Control C. You can guess, I'm sure, what's coming next. Coming up here, I'm going to paste it in. There it is. I'm going to click over here, and I'm going to tell it to execute. And I got another message saying, completed on time. And I know it's a different message because this now, the timestamp on here changed. So I'm going to trust that you can do the other tables that are in here. Watch me do it but I would like you to eventually do it yourselves. Does that make sense to everyone? Please do it a table at a time, please. All right, I'll tell you what. Let me put these in, and as soon as I get them in, I'll come right over there. Don't go down, once you get down with the order details and you get down to line 78 here, don't put in the indexes yet, please. No, I don't want to do that. You're in the wrong file. No, you want to do this file over here. You got to build the schema first. So no, start from there. Start from that. Work your way down. You were trying to put in records when you didn't have the schema in there yet. Just remove all that. Maybe that would work. I go to the next problem. But just like I said, do it a table at a time. Has everybody had a chance to do that? Now, when you look over here, I'm looking, and under my tables, there's nothing in there. Under my file tables, there's nothing in there. Under my external tables, there's nothing in there. And under graph tables, there's nothing in there. What the hell's the problem? I believe that if we come up here and we click this refresh that's right here, see this? It's supposed to refresh it, and they're supposed to be there. Now, if you say, well, they're not showing, I'm not sure why they wouldn't be showing, but they should be there. Now, how could I tell for sure that something is there? If you look up on the screen here, how could I tell for sure something is there? Well, what if I went back in here and I went back to this first table, okay? And I tried putting it in again. Would you agree that if I have that information in there already, this should fail? Would you agree with that? So I'm going to try it. There is already an object named categories in the database. So they should all be in there. Now I'm taking for granted that you were all able to do that. That everybody got these 8 tables or whatever they were in there. All right? And Christopher, if you're still working on yours, not a problem, not at all. We're not in any hurry here. All right? Then I'd like you to go back one more time to this file right here. And now, even though typically I wouldn't do all these together, I'm going to try them. Let me try it first, see if I get any errors or not. All right, so I'm going to highlight the rest of the file. Then I'm going to come back in here to my management studio. I'm going to paste it in, and I'm going to attempt to execute it. And it worked. So please do that then. So come back into your file. We're still in this 00 schema thing that's in here. All right? Questions? Anybody have any problem doing that? Anybody try doing it and get an error? All right. So we should have all of our schema should now be set up. All right. So I'm going to come in here. I'm going to remove all this now because I don't need it anymore. I do want to mention to you, if I wanted to take those queries and save them, I can give these things a name right here. See this? Now, typically after you've built your schema and after you put in your insert statements to put in your records, you don't save any of that stuff. It's not that you can't. It's typically that you don't. All right? So, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and under my all SQL Server, I am now going to open up 01 categories. There it is. Now, we would run these one at a time. One of the reasons I put the semicolons on the end is so that we should be able to run these all at once. So I'm going to highlight all of it, copy it to the clipboard, go back into my management studio, paste it in, and you'll notice I get errors. Well, what doesn't it like? Then let's look. It says what? Invalid column name, category description. All right, so in the insert into, it doesn't like this. I don't know why. So we're going to see if we can figure out why right now. So let me grab all this and remove it because it doesn't like it. Oh, it's because, oh, okay. I think it's because they still had that other stuff in there. So let me try that again. Copy that to the clipboard and let me try it one more time. All right, I still had all those other things in there, but it doesn't like it. So what is it saying here? All right, I still have some of those create indexes on mine. See this? I want to get rid of those. Okay, now it is still giving me errors. I want to see what the errors are. There's 2 ways I can do that. I can put my mouse over this and it says invalid object named categories. I don't know why that would be invalid. We should have a table named categories. All right, and it should have a field in it called category description. Not sure why it's not working, but I'm going to try to run it anyway. And you'll notice it worked. See that? How do I know it worked? Hey, remember this? Remember when we came in here and we typed in select star from categories? Remember that? And then we clicked, now in this case, the execute. Notice what we get. It's down here and it's nice and little, but you see it? I don't know why it was showing those as being an error. I had not seen that before, but I thought, what the hell, I'll run it anyway, because worst case, it's going to tell me what the error is. Notice even now, select star from categories, it's underlining categories here. All right. So now I've got my first bit of data in, and I'm going to come down. You can probably guess what I'm going to be doing here. Now I can close this one, and I can open up 02, which I think is probably, it's either employees or customers. It's customers. Again, I'm going to do a Control A, Control C, or however you do your copying. And again, I'm going to come back into here, boom, and I'm going to execute it. Every time you see one row affected here, that means it's throwing another record into the table. Does that make sense to everyone? All right. So I now hopefully have all my customers in there. So I can select star from customers, and I can run that. And now you can see there's my customer data. Much easier to see than what we looked at when we were inside of PHPMyAdmin. I think, am I wrong here? Nope, it does not let me make it any bigger. All right. So I'm just gonna follow this. In other words, I'm gonna get rid of this. I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna do the same thing with the next table and then the next one in order. Does that make sense to everybody? So I'm gonna give you 5 or 10 minutes to have you do the same thing. Does everybody understand when you look up on the screen here? For instance, right here, this dillobikes.com, these are all made up. Okay, just so you know that, the URLs are going to be made up. All right.